My name is Chris. I run our sort of development department here. I'm not sure how much you know about MintTwist in general. I'll go through a bit of an intro in some of the slides. But we're a full service digital agency, which means we cover building of websites and apps and everything like that, and then also sort of the digital marketing side. That's the side that Ollie works on. So a bit of everything means that the web builds that we do take into account heavily the marketing side of things, which is making sure you visible on Google and advertisements and things like that, and vice versa. Everything that the marketing side does, we get to build properly and things like that. Okay, so yeah, this is one of the first ones we've done on the sort of development side. It's going to sort of try and give an overview of things that are important when you are looking at getting a new site built. So there are lots of different reasons for building a new site, lots of different options that you have, lots of things that you can think about in advance, a lot of things that impact once you get going. So we'll try and cover off some of those. What it might be good to do is, and well, because there's only a few of us, maybe get some input just from you guys, because then I can talk maybe a bit more to the sort of things that you're keen on hearing. Maybe if you just if you can give a brief introduction of where you are now, what you're looking at, you know.
Yeah. Now?
Yeah.
I used to be a doctor
Okay.
in Bristol and London. That was 5 years ago. I left that behind. For 5 years I've been kind of nomadic.
Yeah.
Now I teach yoga, and I've been doing that for 4 years. And
Okay.
I just started running yoga programs and retreats and teach trainings. But like I've just started, so it's all on a small scale. And I have a website that someone helped me just like throw out in 2 seconds on WordPress. But it's when I look at it, I'm just like, it just looks really noddy and a bit like beginnery. And I don't know if I've got the layout right, and whether I need to have like 3 separate websites for like a blog separate and what I'm offering at the yoga program separate, because right now it's like everything's in one. It's a mishmash. I don't know really what it. First it started as my blog, and then it turned into a sale. The blog became a small tab which I don't even feed into anymore, and I just don't know like if I'm doing it right, whether I should clearly define each, separate it, have one website linking to the other for if that affects.
So what are the other ones? You've got the blog, and then what's on the other?
Well, it's all just one website. There's a blog that I really haven't touched for a while, and right now there's just like what I'm offering, which is my yoga retreat kind of program, and I teach training, but it's just a page with the information.
And people get in touch with you just via a phone or an email from there.
Yeah. Or there's a contact form on there, but I don't know. I'm not very happy with it. I could show it to you if you want, but
yeah, that'll be good. Okay.
That sounds good for SEO stuff as well, right? That's what you're
having separate.
Well, I guess we can talk about that after if you want, but no.
And SEO is just something I try to read about, but when you're not a techie person, it just is like it feels like it drains so much energy trying to understand it. So but I do need to understand
as well. Okay.
So I work at an events company, and our website is horrendous. It's about 10 years old. It needs updating really badly. But we're so part of our services is we have a matching tool where we match solution providers and attendees based on questionnaires, which will be a system of its own.
Okay.
So what they're planning to do is have a website, and then when it's going to individual events, it will go onto that software, but it will be mirrored, so it would look exactly the same kind of theme.
So the software sits by itself. But you want to see sort of that on the site.
Yeah.
Okay. So what the site at the moment? Do people use that? How do they use that? They use that just to get in touch, or is there?
I mean, there's information about the events, like speakers, agendas. Okay. There's a registration form, but it's just the very high bounce rate.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Okay. That sounds good. So I'll try and bear those things in mind. But obviously, at any point, if you want to ask questions or jump in or anything like that, we're covering quite a broad range of stuff. So some of it will be more relevant than others, but hopefully it will be useful. So some of the stuff we're going to go through today, I'm going to try and sort of elaborate on a bit of the process once someone is building a project which helps in sort of helps you think about it in the right way. I mean, it gives a bit of insight into what happens when someone like us take on a project. So that hopefully will give you some insight into sort of our line of thinking, what we do, the sorts of things that you can be thinking out in advance. And then we'll go through a few sort of jargony bits and look at some platforms and sort of some considerations, and then wrap up with any questions. So the next bit goes into MintTwist, which I've already spoken a bit about. We have been around for quite a long while, maybe 2 decades, obviously based in Old Street. Full service, so we cover a bit of everything, so it helps with SEO and things like that. There's about 30 of us, all on site, all here downstairs, which really helps us. Myself, this is here so that you know I'm someone who hopefully should be worthy of giving this sort of advice. I joined MintTwist about 6.5 years ago now. I've always worked in development agencies on the development side of stuff, but agencies do development and SEO work. I actually worked as a developer for a long time building the site, so I've sort of had experience in what we do when we build the sites, and now I work with sort of more of the project delivery and the scoping out and helping people get to the point where they want to build and deliver a new site. And it's covered a lot of projects in that time, a lot of international products, multilingual, things like that. So to go straight into sort of website planning, which is what the name of the workshop is. So what does that mean? Obviously there's a lot that goes into that, and as you're probably discovering, I don't know how much you've done so far looking into this, but what we'll try and cover is sort of the things that are important and why it's important and what you can and should be doing. So we'll start off by looking at some of the sort of the common jargony bits or things that people look at just to sort of get a base understanding. So design and development, often people don't know too much about the difference, or they'll look for one thinking of the other and this sort of thing. So they are different. So design is the process that happens early on. So the design is a very different set of skills from a developer. The designer is the artistic person who's going to be doing all your visuals, thinking about how you want people to convert, whether you want people to click through and book a course or find out more information, things like that, while keeping in with the sort of theme of the sort of visitors that are going to be there, or whether they're looking at how we lay out stuff on the page to get people to find and search for events that they're looking for. That's all part of a designer's job. And then when things enter into development, that is the sort of programmers who are going to be actually coding. There's a lot less discussion, because by the time we've got to that, we've got our design made, so we know what the site's going to look like. That's a lot of discussion, meetings with you to finalize what we want. We end up with a visual of what it's going to look like, and then it gets sent to the developers to build, essentially. So there's a period of time where we're with the developer to build, and then it'll come back and it will look like it did in the designs, and then there's usually some tweaks and bits and pieces at the end. And this is not just, none of these things are really just how we do it. This is how anyone you speak to will do it, whether it's us, whether it's someone twice our size, whether it's a one-person thing. You can get people who do the design and the development. Obviously, like all things, you get people who do multiple bits and pieces. So this is what is known as software development lifecycle. So this is just what happens when someone takes on a project, whether it's a small project or a big project, when you work with someone, large or small. These are generally the phases that they will go through. So you start off with discovery, so that's a lot of discussion. That's where you need to answer a lot of questions, find out a lot of things, sometimes make decisions on things that haven't even thought about. So that will be, usually we do sort of a big kick-off meeting with lots of different people and yourselves. We ask lots of questions about the business, what's important, target audiences, what you've got at the moment, where you've had success, where you've had problems, maybe looking at people who are doing similar things, websites that you like, where you want to be going, things like that. So that's usually a good way to start off the project, because it gives everyone, it sort of filters down what is quite often a lot of ideas and concepts. And a lot of the time when people think about new sites, they come up with a lot of ideas, or they see a lot of things around and that, and this phase really helps sort of consolidate that down into what's the key things we want to have on the site, where there might be getting users to sign up, getting them to download something, collecting an email address, getting them to book an event, something like that. And then our analysis phase is sort of turning that into a real plan for what we're actually going to build, what we're going to end up with, and how we're going to end up measuring success, everything like that. Then we've got the development phase, which I spoke about, which is fairly hands off. It goes off once it goes off with the developers, it gets built and comes back. Like everything, there'll be a phase of testing where we test the functionality, we test it out with some users, we see what sort of responses, and then make any changes based on sort of user feedback. And that's an important cycle to go through, because the best way to make changes to a site is to collect user feedback and bring that into the site. Then we have deployment, which is the process of putting it live. So this can sometimes it means a new site on a new URL. Sometimes it means replacing an old site. It sounds, for both of you have sites at the moment, so you'll be replacing an existing site. So there's lots to consider when you're replacing an existing site, because you might have people who do use the site that you have at the moment. So you need to make sure that if people visit that site, they have like a bookmarked page on that site, it takes them to the corresponding page on the new site, things like that. So there's a lot to consider there. And then maintenance is sort of any ongoing stuff that you want to tweak or change slightly. So this is just usually sort of an ongoing relationship you have with whoever's putting your site together about how you can keep things fresh and keep things updated. So that's roughly the sort of cycle that anyone doing this sort of thing will follow. It allows you to keep going through it as well. You can keep going through phases of discovery, reapplying things, testing them, putting them live, supporting them, and it allows any site to sort of grow quite a lot like that. Whether it's just small, you're saying that's small, and you just want to have a form on there to capture things, it allows you to sort of build up.
How long does it take one cycle?
Well, so this can vary. I think any time between sort of probably the smallest you're going to have for a comprehensive cycle like this is like a month, but you could if it was a much bigger project, you could spend a year. If it's we've worked with bigger companies who have like shops, stores, international and stuff. So sometimes a discovery phase or an analysis phase where you're finding out a lot of what's important, you're answering a lot of questions, you're planning a lot of stuff out. That can some of them want to spend 3, 4, 6 months on that, because it's an important part of it. Really, it informs everything else that you're going to do. Once you hit the development and the testing phase and even the deployment phase, that part is just sort of actioning everything that's been decided and designed. And then the sort of the maintenance part is just keeping things ticking over. So it can change. Usually, sort of mid sort of size sites for us, it's somewhere between sort of 2 and 4 months. But a lot of that is early on, where there'll be a lot of questions, and they'll be putting designs together, and they'll be tweaking the designs to make sure they're right and they fit, how your business portrays itself, as well as what customers are expecting, and also what you want to have on the site in order to get people to convert in the way you want to convert. It can vary, but it's usually at least a month to go through the whole thing. Most commonly a couple. So then we've got some points on sort of some of the initial steps that we say to people who are in the process of thinking about what they need to do to get a new site up and running. So the first point, which comes up a lot during our initial phases of sort of analysis, and that is really defining and narrowing down what you actually want and what you need. So like there's lots of the time people have ideas about what's wrong on their site or things they don't like. So we try and help people to think about what their perfect site would actually be doing at the moment. Is it I want people to fill in a form and sign up and I can get back to them, or download a pack, or book something online, even pay for something online, anything like that. It's finding sort of almost like objectives or sort of aims that we can distill some of the project down to, and that helps inform everything from like design, how it's built, what we build it in, all those sort of things. So it's really important, and quite often there's sort of we ask quite in-depth questions and try and really get people thinking about it, because there's more to it than you expect at this step really. And you actually try and really distill down to what you need. The next step, obviously, whoever you find, you need to find people who know what they're doing, who can talk to you about this. They need to sort of understand what your vision is and what you want to do, both sort of technically and just sort of aesthetically, and get sort of the style of what you're doing, and you can trust to deliver it. So trust factors are things obviously like having done work like that in the past. You can all usually find sort of quotes and references from developers or agencies. That's an important part. And then working with professionals to plan for your audience and not for you. That's a big part of it. And that's a big part we try and add a lot of value to. Obviously with the initial steps, we are asking you what's important to you. So that does form the foundation of what we're doing. And then we do like to, we'll be quite honest and quite direct and say, in order to get your conversions or this or that, then you may have maybe this other site that does this quirky thing, but if you want to get the conversions, these are the things that make users click on this area. Or,
I think the mistake is getting to it personally attached to the site, and wanting
exactly.
it to represent your personality.
Yeah, it's important that it does do that, but yeah, there's a balance between all the things that you like and all the things that are good, and then the designers, the UX people we have, the things that they tried and tested know that makes people click on this button or click through to here. So that's often just like down to positioning of things. It can be to do with colours. It can be to do with language. So there's a lot there, and we try and sort of get involved quite in depth and say and find a balance between something that represents you and your brand, as well as what's going to get you the results that you want. So there's a few questions as well. These are sort of notes and questions that come up early on. So to do with planning, I think in both of your cases it's what we call a rebuild of a site, or you have a site at the moment and there's going to be a new site that would replace it or be the next version of it. So there's differences that come with that compared to somebody who's building an original site. Often with an original site there's a lot more to try and work out. If you're doing a rebuild, you often have a lot of sort of feedback or ideas based on what the site you have at the moment. You said yours wasn't, you didn't like this and that about it, or you didn't use the blog or things like that. So all those sorts of things are useful because they feed into what the next version will be. And it's the same with, I think you have the parts of the site which you want to do more with, which is good because it means you just skip essentially a first version of the site. So the MVP, so that's sort of the minimum viable product. So quite often we'll work to that, and an MVP is quite often misunderstood as well. Like, it's not a scaled down version of anything. It is really the minimum viable. So it is a complete product. It has to do everything that it has to do, but it is a way to get that minimum what is viable live, get it working, get people on it, launching as quickly as possible. Usually is the best way to go. with most things. Obviously, it's something that people are often quite nervous about. You know, you want to spend time to get everything perfect, but usually in 99% of cases, whether it's a little site or a huge site, the answer is to get it live and then iterate on that. So quite often we work to the idea of an MVP, but an MVP, some people use it as an excuse to sort of give you a smaller version of what your site should be, but it should always be to a high standard. It's you know, it just means it doesn't have extras and things that you don't need to be on there right away. That's all it is. It's a way of sort of keeping eye on the prize. Things that can affect our budget. So usually, well, we do a fixed price. So we speak to people in advance, ask a lot of questions, find out the budget, work what we can sort of, you know, tell them what we can do with that, where we're going to be spending that, where we're going to have to, you know, if there's a tight budget, okay, we're going to do this, we're not going to do that. Keep it in line with MVP, and if it works, you know, if it's all agreeable, then we'll work on that basis. Some people you might work with won't have fixed budgets. You know, they can sometimes start out cheaper, but obviously there's a risk that they just sort of go on and never really finish. So there's lots of things that can affect the budget. Mostly it's just things that are going to take time. So that's why we like to sort of spec it early, make a spec, make a specification early, so that we can all agree on what we want in there. And then, you know, before any money is paid, we know, and you know exactly what's going to be built, how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. There's no surprises for anyone, and it makes everything a lot simpler. Otherwise, anything that affects time will affect budget, whoever you work with. You know, if things like designs can often be a point where time is in question. So, you know, someone hands you a design, we build these pages, well done this design, and then if you don't like it, then that can take longer. So it's important to have a process at every stage to sort of that takes that into account. So to handle designs, we have a comprehensive meeting where we get all of, you know, any existing ideas or brand guidelines, colours, tone of voice, things that you already have. And we'll work those into the design that we make. But we start off with like one page. So we'll show you a page. This is the look and feel of what we're doing, and then we tweak that based on, you know, work with you, tweak that, improve it based on feedback, and then work that up into more pages and more pages and more pages. And that means we don't waste time. We don't add extra time on. We don't cost you more by doing that. So it's important to have processes whoever you work with that don't end up adding extra time. Go live dates or deadlines. Sometimes people have those. Sometimes it'll be based on events or, you know, seasonality of different things. I don't know if there's a pickup in events or yoga things in the summer. A lot of things pick up in the summer or sort of the spring. So quite often deadlines. It's good to pick a deadline either way, and then you can start working on other launch things around that. And obviously, when we set up a project, we will give you a timeline. I think we'll give you a timeline that you'll be working to, that's in line with your deadline. What can you do to plan? Those are the bits that we'll go into more detail with as well in the rest of the slides. So the project, like I said, the time scale, you want to always get a time scale with who you're working with, because they will have an idea of how long it's going to take them, and it's something that can be stuck to and is quite firmly fixed. Phases of the project, that's what I spoke about a bit earlier with the sort of the development, the testing, the deployment, and all that. It's important to understand what phases there are going to be with, and even if we're doing it, or if you speak to a single developer who's doing it, just to know where the project is at all times, because otherwise projects will drift into just sort of an endless void of never really being done. Wherever you are, it's important to have a point of contact. So we set up account managers who are our sort of go-betweens between the developers and yourselves, so that you have someone to speak to, ask questions of, get the status of. That sometimes will be, there could be a developer who's working on it, but yeah, there's advantages to having one of our account manager people as your point of contact. What happens at go live? So that's obviously a big day when you're putting everything live. So that's a discussion that you need to have with whoever you're working with. Sometimes there can be a bit of downtime. Sometimes people will need logins for things you already have. You need to decide which day of the week you're going to do on, things like that. Just sometimes it can be more disruptive than others. Sometimes it's okay if the website's not there for 2 hours or 1 or 2 weeks, whatever. But for some people, it's very critical. And then what parts of planning should an agency help you with? So it should be sort of some of the bits I've mentioned where you should be taking your ideas, making sure we distill the ideas down to some key objectives, and then it should be talking to you about sort of design, your style, and how we can add to that some technological know-how about how to get people to convert and things like that.
Sorry, Chris. We've got a question asking if you have a website planning template that could be shared.
Well, I can definitely find something and put examples together. It does vary somewhat because, and I'll get into some of the bits I'm going to get into next are different types of websites, different platforms, and things like that.
So obviously depends a lot on
the
website.
But we put a specification together which will go through. It builds up bit by bit. So we start off with a specification, and that specification will have in it something like a sitemap. That's where you start, because the sitemap will help us understand what pages are important. It helps everyone else understand what pages are important. Often at that point we cut out some pages, or there's people will have lists of services. Sometimes they have loads of pages, and actually it's confusing for people. So that's where we start. We start with a sitemap, which is just every page is going to be on the website. How it's all going to link together. Sometimes it's 100 pages, sometimes it's 3. And then from there, you look at which of those pages are going to look very different from the others. So they need their own templates, and then you build up from there. You sort of put what's going to be on each page. You start building designs for each of those pages, and then once we have some idea of what they're going to look like, we start looking at more in depth at the technology that we're going to use to deliver on that. So it is quite design-led, which is a good thing. Instead of saying we're going to build it this way, let's try and make it work. We do the designs, and then we figure out how we're going to work it. So there are I can find some bits and post some bits about the general sort of stuff that comes up every time. Roughly that will be it. It'll be to do with a sitemap, building out pages. For bigger sites or sites that are more complex, often we can start with a technical discussion.
Right, okay.
So the next bit I'm actually going to go into is the different types of sites. So trying to keep it relatively simple, and I think there's roughly three sort of types that most every site falls into, with the exception of some of the very large ones. So content-based sites, which are the majority of actual sort of sites. So it's just sites that you go to and you're reading or you're viewing content. So that can be in blogs or articles, it can be in videos, it can be, BBC, it can be YouTube, anything like that where you're just consuming some sort of content, text, image, video, even details about a business or a service, like MintTwist site that we have, that's just a content site, the same as the BBC site is a content site because it's only there to allow people to read stuff, get information. So although they obviously are quite different within this categorization and within a lot of the stuff that comes up when you're planning them, they're the same. So I think yours would probably be quite content heavy, probably quite. So a content site doesn't exclude things like contact forms and maps or anything like that, but it is primarily based to give people the information they're looking for. That's why most of the sites on the web are just content sites. E-commerce. So I don't think either of your sites, I presume there's no e-commerce functionality.
We've got a registration page.
Okay, but people don't pay for anything.
Yeah, because we've got Eventbrite built into to it, so that they could buy tickets online.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that counts. So yeah. So e-commerce. Sometimes sites will be just e-commerce. You know, like Amazon. There's no paid. There's like the terms and conditions page on Amazon, but there's no real Amazon pages that are just giving you bits of information. It's all e-commerce. So yeah, online checkout and sales. It can be very product driven, like something like Amazon, or it can be more service driven, where you're signing up and you're getting access to something, or some monthly subscription, single payment, all things like that. So there's a lot of different things to consider once you have an e-commerce site. I mean, you know, there are ways that e-commerce can creep into any site. Obviously, you've got a bit through Eventbrite. That, you know, it's a possibility that you could have people who sign up for courses eventually. Or
no, I have a booking form which they go through, and I've even tried to like plug in a PayPal thing, which I don't like them to use, but I use TransferWise, and I just I don't know, I just take, I don't know, go through that, and then I just tell them personally how to pay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of, you know, that's a form of e-commerce. So, but it's also with it built the right way, it'd be easy to make it simple for people to pay. You know, if they just wanna book this or that course or class.
Then for them to be able to book online on your site, you'd have to pay a fee for that service, right? For having
so
that
most of the e-commerce sort of checkout things like that, they'll it's not an upfront fee usually. It's a cut of the fee that comes through. So usually it's quite small. It's a few percent, 1 to 3 or so, depending on which one you use. It's like that because you can build a system to take a credit card and process it on your site, but you have to have a lot of compliance stuff for that, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and you have all the security stuff for that, which it costs you way more to do all of that than to just give PayPal a couple of percent.
I think they take 5%.
Yeah, well, there are lots of options now. There are Stripe, WorldPay, Skipper. There's a lot of options.
But for me, TransferWise is.
But
I don't think you can incorporate TransferWise into.
No, I think that's like a peer-to-peer sort of thing. So obviously, it might not be ideal for right now, but if you get to a point where it is, then it's an option. And I'm sure there will be options with PayPal or others that are viable, because obviously they're so widely used. They've got to remain competitive, and they've got to remain at a price where people want to use them.
How much does Eventbrite take as a cut?
I don't really deal with the Eventbrite side, so I'm not sure.
There'll be an amount. I think they probably have their own.
Oh no, I think we actually get monthly invoices. Thinking of it, we get monthly invoices actually.
Eventbrite. It's because I think Eventbrite have like a whole package for having the events and things like that.
I think they recently put up their fees as well.
We're moving off Eventbrite anyway, so.
Yeah, but they're definitely trying to sort of be more than just a payment processor. They're trying to add a lot. Usually the payment processors, there won't be fees. There'll just be there won't be fees without you taking payments, essentially. So there'll just be a percentage of the site.
Sorry, Chris. Do most companies use one of these sort of pre-made e-commerce things rather than their own build thing? Oh, okay.
So just in terms of PayPal, when you buy something and use PayPal. So like Amazon have their own one because they can afford to obviously if Amazon was skimming 1 or 3% of everything, it would go to billions. So they have their own one, but they'll have a lot of hoops that they have to jump through. Security things, compliance, and all that sort of stuff that probably costs them millions, but it's still less for them.
Do you think it's worth having like that online payment system as a means of getting more?
I think.
As opposed to my booking process where I have to email back and forth how to use TransferWise.
Exactly. I think
it becomes a conversation.
It's definitely a convenience for a lot of people. That they can just go through and do it, especially as time goes on, people become they're expecting that more and more. At any point where someone has to, young people, if they have to start emailing and sorting this out, they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
you just want to sort of click and go. And there are these payment providers like PayPal and Stripe and other ones that people trust now. Like 5 or 6 years ago, people putting something in online like that, even then was okay. That's a bit weird. I don't know that. Now there's enough faith and trust in it, rightly placed. That I think makes it a bit, makes people a bit more.
Yeah, I think it's true. Like, there's a huge move towards like one-click payments, and so many people will drop off if there's like that little bit of extra effort put in. So even though you might be losing that small percentage through these services, whatever, you probably will get a lot more customers actually coming to you.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not always something you necessarily want to do right away, but it's definitely something that.
Yeah, maybe that's more true for products though, because
maybe
with me it's like there's a conversation before, and then they decide they want to come, and then they're willing to go through the process.
Yeah, I guess if you ever want to get to the point where
you just want mass
if there was I guess it's a good problem to have if you had 10 conversations every day. But oh God, I know it's too much.
Yeah, it's not quite there yet.
So it might not be there yet, but it's when you have a content-based site, it's very easy to move up to sort of an e-commerce based site. Are you guys sort of partnering with Eventbrite? Is that going to be a long-term thing, or are you looking to use more of your own?
No, we're actually going to move away from Eventbrite, and so the person that kind of matches delegates and solution partners, he's looking into software, and that's going to be both the matching tool and the registration platform as well. So they're looking into that.
Yeah. Okay. So that sort of touches on the last category, which is a lot more sort of wishy-washy. Sometimes it can definitely involve parts of the other two, but it's sort of the specialist sites that aren't quite there to just give information. Obviously, you want to give information about your events and things like that, but there's also something big to do there. There's a bit of e-commerce, there's a bit of something else that's sort of bespoke and specific. So that's why there's this third category, which it can often be software as a service online stuff, or anything that doesn't quite fit the others or is a bit specialist. So I think yours probably fits into that with aspects of the other ones, because it's a bit more specialist. It's a bit unique. It's specific thing people coming there to do. It can still involve some commerce and some content, but there's something else that they need to be able to get out of it that affects something like going to an event. And that's why there's usually a bit of a different solution that's needed. Whether you Eventbrite or the custom software that you're looking at using, that's typical of that. So content-based websites, like I said, large amounts of articles, categories. When you get to a large amount, you have to look at sort of filtering, how you're going to update them, edit them. I mean, yours is on WordPress at the moment, isn't it? So it's relatively easy to update things. Well, depending on how it's been built, there's a lot of different ways you can build sites with WordPress. So
my understanding is there's 2 WordPress platforms. Is that right? Like .org and .something.
There's if you're going to start a new WordPress site, you can either do it with the company WordPress.com or .org, whichever one it is, but it's the WordPress company. Yeah, you host the site with them, and you pay them some fees, and they'll sort some bits out for you, and that. And then there's the other sort of side to it where it uses the same WordPress, but anyone can download a copy of the whole thing and set it up themselves. So that's what we usually do, because
I think that's what I'm doing.
yeah, but they're both fine. You end up with the same sort of admin area and panel and stuff in the end. We do our own thing with it because we build it up a bit more bespoke.
So you use WordPress?
Yeah, we use WordPress for a lot of things. I'll go into some of the platforms that we use, but WordPress is quite good for a lot of them. Quite often, with a content-based site, you'll want a CMS to edit content. I'm not sure how much content you have. I guess the events. Do you manage the events through Eventbrite at the moment? And that's the only place you add an event, or?
Well, we have. So it's really awkward using WordPress because we have a main website and then each event has its own website, so we have to log in to each individual event to edit it. So
Does each event actually have its own website with different stuff?
It all looks the same, but yeah, you have to go into it individually to update it.
Okay.
So we're gonna kind of get rid of that as well.
Yeah, that sounds a little. Cause I mean, like I said, we use WordPress a lot, but there's a lot of different ways you can use WordPress.
Yeah, I don't know who set it up, but it's set up really bad.
We've got lots of sites which have events, probably not as comprehensive as your events, but you can still make them a part of a main site. They don't need to have their own login. You should be able to go into one control area, see events, see your list of events, edit them all from in there. That's roughly how we put it together. But things that will impact content on based websites is how much content you have, especially if you're moving to a new site as well. Like obviously you don't want to lose that old content because that's helping you, and whatever you have at the moment, that's helping you rank in Google. Someone might have a page bookmark or anything like that, so you don't want to lose anything you've got at the moment because that's all important. It's important for your SEO. How for your updating content is another big bit for SEO. You want at least to be able to add a blog post or an event or whatever you want easily when you want to, when you need to, or edit one. That should be a big part of it. And then sort of the amount of people that are going to need to do it. Okay, so it might just be you who's managing everything on the site. You might have different people who need to come on and manage different bits. I'd imagine it's more than just you. And then sort of in the future, how big is the site going to grow? How many people are going to be looking to find different varied content on your site? The events you have, you say are they sort of specific?
Yeah, they're they're based around like IT, and so the events are for like heads of IT. CISOs, like the market's very niche, and then you have the other audience, which would be solution providers that want to have deals with these people.
Okay, so there's a bit about getting multiple audiences off the site and getting them to the right area. E-commerce sites, product details, listing filtering, all of your receipts and customer management, that sort of stuff. It might not be too applicable right now for either of you, but it could be. And there's a lot of systems out there that will take care of a lot of this for you. And things to take into account: how many products are being sold, how are people paying, recurring fees, all things like that. Which may not be too much of a factor now, but often things grow and change, and these things become a concern quicker than you think. And then just how is it going to grow? How many different products, how many different courses, or different things, different retreats, different sorts of events, different costs, systems that you have to integrate with. So if you guys are looking at the system to do the event stuff, then how that's going to integrate with the website, that would be, if we were going to have a chat about that system for you right now, then I'd be saying, okay, what's the name of the system? We're going to have a look at it, see if they offer a way to pull all the data onto a website, which usually modern systems like that do, and then that would form the basis of that. What's next?
Chris, is there you could combine these kind of ideas though, right? With you could have an e-commerce site, but also a blog to kind of drive some.
Yeah, so lots of these can and will cross over, and often, this is sort of an evolution as well as a categorization. An e-commerce site will usually have a lot of content pages. It's usually not going to be Amazon content. Usually it's going to be a lot of content, a lot of this, that, especially if you're providing like some more of like a service thing. It's less of a buy a single product for you. It's more of this is about the course of the retreats and that. So there's a lot of content driven sales stuff. I guess it's the same with the events. If people are going to come to an event, they need to know a lot about why they're going to go and all that.
Like at some point, I really want to upload a lot of like educational YouTube videos and then link it to a site. So my question is it better to have two sites, one that is content based and then one that is retreat based, and then linking the two, as opposed to mushing it all together and then getting lost in there? Do you know what I mean? Because if you're selling a retreat, you want that to be like the first thing they click into, not the content.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I mean, generally, usually the advice is try, unless they're very, very different, there'll be a way to make it work on a single site. Obviously, with two sites, there's just more to do. You've got more costs, more this and that.
Does it have any advantage to clicking though between the sites? Does that like convert to help with SEO?
There's more benefit from having. So say if you have a blog on your site, people link to that blog, you'll gain more SEO value on your sales pages as well. So you probably do want to combine them.
Right.
It's kind of delving into SEO a bit more, but yeah, I think definitely it'd probably be best to have.
What if you kind of cheated a bit and you had like your blog site with the content, and then you have like retreats as a tab, and they'll click on the tab thinking it's the site, but it opens up the new site. Does that work?
Most things like that, Google is wise to. Essentially. So they'll, if you just have two sites that are just linking to each other the whole time, then unless one of them does become quite an authority, there's not much gain. It's just two people. One of them is saying the other one's trustworthy, and the other one's saying the other one's trustworthy, and there's no external thing there. So it's probably better to try and combine them. I think they're probably similar enough that you're not going to have too much confusion with. Sometimes there are some sites that got done by people have a business that does one thing, and then they've acquired some other thing down the road, and it's quite different. And they're like, I want to keep it on the same site. It's like, I don't know who's going to be coming for both these things. But by having them both on one site, you do add more authority to the one site, essentially. So there is a trick to, there is some skill to having something that multiple people, multiple audiences can come to and find the right thing that they want. But yeah, there's not a lot you can do, and there used to be, because Google slowly has tried to worm its way into sort of countering all the little things that people try to do. But yeah, you probably, unless they're very different, you probably get more value out of having the one, and just making sure it makes sense for if multiple people coming. So you have quite often landing pages you use, what we call landing pages. So those are like sort of mini home pages that are particular to one thing. So you can have a bunch of stuff on your home page about the different options and everything like that. Then you can have a landing page which is specialised to be about the retreats or something like that, and it'll have lots of stuff on there that means that when people search for that stuff, they find matching things. But instead of taking to the home page, you're taking to this page. It'll just be your URL / something else, just a page on your site. But it'll be suited to one specific sort of offering or product or things like that. So it's you get some of the sort of benefits that maybe you were sort of hoping to get in you create specific pages within the site still, rather than aimed at specific things or specific products, and you can aim those a lot more particularly at what people are searching, and they work quite well. We do quite a lot. And then when you do ad campaign and anything else you do off the back of that, we'll use these landing pages quite a lot.
So I think the template I'm using on WordPress right now has like one front page and then the rest of blog pages, and it's like it's almost like I need a second front page.
Yeah,
but I don't know if they offer them on the templates, or I've just chosen the wrong template.
Yeah, it depends on, because with WordPress there's no real limits. Like obviously it's not simple to do, but you can make other templates. You can have another template that's a landing page. It looks similar to your homepage maybe. Obviously sit on like a slightly different URL, so on the same URL but / something else. And yeah, it would be like a mini homepage. People sometimes do like categorizations of pages, like maybe if you have your two different the other IT people and the other people, then it's like a hub page in some ways as well. You know. This is the page where they can see all this, the IT events and things like that. So yeah, there's ways to, but that's all to do with the, when we, like I said, we look at the sitemap early on, and we look at what pages should be on the site, that, and because we take into account SEO quite heavily, we'll work that into the sitemap and say, oh, you need this page because this will be the page that people looking for this land on. It specialises a few pages down, but it means you don't need to have different sites because I don't think you'll get a lot of benefits from that as you might have done from years ago. So a few other bits to consider that you can sort of take into account before maybe you get into a deep discussion with anyone. So using what metrics you can. So I don't know if you have, presumably you might have Google Analytics or something on your site. It's not too difficult to set up.
I've tried and I gave up. It's just too techy. I was like, oh.
Yeah, if you don't know how, it can be difficult. But if you do get it set up, the earlier you get it set up, it's just going to be recording information forever. So if you manage to get it set up and then you don't do anything with it for 2 years, you come back to it in 2 years, it's got data for 2 years, and you can see everything. You can see who visits, when they visit, how they visit, where they go, where they stop, and then when you come to do a rebuild or something like this, quite often one of the early questions we'll ask about is analytics. Sometimes it's just can you give us access so that we can see it as well, but it will be very useful to see who the audience is that's on there at the moment, what they're doing, even down to what devices they're using, things like that. It's really useful. It doesn't always have to be Google Analytics. There's plenty of alternatives. Most people just use Google. Anything you have that tells us sort of who's visiting and what they're doing, that can play into what you build as the next version of the site. You can improve on things. You can take things into account.
Are there workshops on how to set that up? Or is it that simply?
So we can find some bits to. Well, I can show you some bits at the end if you like, just on how you can do that. So as well as that, obviously Google Analytics or something like that is going to tell you where you are at the moment. Most of the time you're going to want to improve. So there's other things that you have to look at as well as that. So you'll be looking at what customers you have at the moment, other ways of getting customers, maybe speaking to them or emails or any other way in which people come in, and also sort of what people you're looking to attract. Sometimes people will have business plans where they're looking at getting in, attracting different sets of customers, or maybe one of the types of people are booking events more than the others, things like that. Establishing those and sort of trying to figure out what they're looking for, that's going to be a big part of any early project planning, and it's probably going to be a lot of what anyone's going to ask you early on. It's going to be who's on the site at the moment, but who are we looking to get onto the site, and then what are we looking to offer them, things like that. So there's sort of some bigger questions, but also sort of more to do with the company and background stuff that you usually going to have to answer early on in development product sort of phase. So for you, I guess you'll have an idea of the sort of people that usually turn up and sort of go there, but you might have an idea of people that you think would that would like to sign up. And that can be age groups, it can be different genders, it can be whatever you want to target. It just helps feed into everything you do. And then sort of other examples, sometimes people do have, obviously they want to base everything off of what other people are doing. That's generally not a great way to go because you just end up trying to catch up to them and copy them, But there can definitely be, sometimes it's just aesthetic things that you like, sometimes it's, okay, this site was easy to use, or this site is doing well, it should never be, we're going to copy this site, but we can definitely take bits from sites, and especially with sort of aesthetic bits, it helps designers quite often as well when we say, oh, look how this works. So those are some of the things that we'll usually ask about early on when we're kicking off a project, and questions that we'll have around building up. Sometimes we build up some user profiles, user journeys of how users are going to go through the site and how we're going to get them to what we end up what we want to do in the end. So whether that's book an event or book a retreat or something like that, it's all a part of right from the start knowing who's going to be there and getting them to the end point. So you have to know all these things to plan out the whole journey, which seems complicated, but with the right people inputting, it's doable. There's a lot of competition to all these things. That's why you have to go into quite a bit of depth. So key objectives. So sort of touched on this a bit, but it's very important to have defined what you wanna have the site do. Both from see if it's an investment, you want money to be coming out of it as well and to be making money. But it also helps ground a lot of the things that you end up doing. Sometimes it does help narrow down when you have a long list of nice things or things that you see on other sites or ideas. It sort of grounds some of those. Okay, is that actually gonna be a good use of time or budget or anything like that? Actually gonna be focusing on some of the key things that I want to come out of this. So yeah, it helps any team you're working with understand the core requirements of the project, and it's useful as an anchor during the design and the planning, because if design and planning often you go into lots of tangents, you go into lots of ideas, visual bits and pieces, so it helps to have some sort of key things to come back to. And it'll help sort of focus everything you're doing, whether it's just something you're doing by yourself or discussions you're having with other people. It's important because there'll be a lot of people you speak to as well who have lots of different ideas as well that they'll input. So we should do this, we should do that, and having something as an anchor is good for that. And of course, it gives you a way out of the gate to measure the success of anything you're doing. And then I touched on a little bit about similar sites. So quite often our designers will ask early on, what are some sites that you like both the look of and sort of sometimes like if there's a similar site in a similar industry or sector that's doing something in a way that you like, then we can look at that. But obviously a large part of our job will be to create a process that works, converts and does that. But looking at similar sites can give a lot of direction to those things. It can help with if you're getting someone to the design, it can help with aesthetics a lot. And it's just obviously it's a really simple thing to do. So considerations for new sites. So this is a bit of a mix of different things that will come up when whether you're building a new site or someone's building you a new site or anything like that. So design. So like I mentioned at the start, design and development are different. So you start off with sort of design process. So our process is to kick everything off with a comprehensive workshop with a designer to go through everything, and for them to understand an existing brand is quite important, because you don't want to change what you have so radically that people can't recognise it. Quite often, when you get into discussions, people might talk about UI and UX, or they might interchange them all the time and different things like that. UI is user interface design, which is the literal design of how someone clicks around a website and what they click on to go here and those sorts of bits. And UX is user experience, which is more of a sort of a whole theme to the whole site, how people perceive it. Obviously you can have a site that's very boring and grey, which sometimes is what people kind of need if it's an accountancy firm or something. and sometimes people want something that's very different and fun, and that will be something that needs to be taken into account. So yeah, that's just a couple of terms which people sometimes use quite a lot, and they are important. Responsive might be something that you hear people talk about. So a responsive site is one that works on a laptop or a mobile or desktop computer or a tablet or anything like that. So it means that whatever size it's at, it just adjusts everything that's on the page.
With a few glitches.
Yeah, well hopefully not, but yeah. So you don't build multiple sites where you just build the one, and if you have a section of 3, then just puts them down underneath each other and degrades sort of gracefully based on size. Mobile first as well is something that you might come across. People talk about mobile first. That's just sort of the concept of more and more people are looking at sites on mobile more than they're looking at anything else. So a lot of the designing and the decision making should actually be mobile led. So sometimes we'll start out with building a mobile design and then inferring or designing website desktop design off of that, because you're probably going to have more people visiting the site. Either you've already got more people visiting the site on mobile, or the trend is going in that direction. So sometimes mobile first design is, for some industries there'll be some things where it's not like that and you just need to have the desktop, but it's a growing thing that
what percentage use mobile over desktop?
It varies quite a lot on industry to industry, but for most it will be a higher percentage using mobile than desktop. So yeah, there'll be some stuff where people just do things on their on desktop. Things like e-commerce have been a bit slower to go to mobile because as people started trusting buying things online, but then buying things online through your phone was another step of trust that people had to get through. So that one's a bit further behind, but it's still, nowadays people are fine with buying, go to Amazon on your phone or whatever. So yeah, in most cases, it's generally it's a higher percentage on mobile than not. So and then mobile can also sort of count iPads and things along with that as well. And not a lot of people have big home desktop computers anymore, and most have laptops and things like that. So but that's also where your metrics can be quite important, because you might find that everybody visiting the site at the moment is doing it from a desktop, which, although that may be because you're not catering to the mobile people very well, so you want to keep them in mind, but it means that you can't just ignore everybody who's currently on the site using desktop. So that's why it's a whole process of information gathering, figuring out the people we want, and then having a process that caters to that. And this, at whatever scale this is, this can be the scale of us doing a huge project, or just what you're thinking about at home. So CMS. So you've both got a CMS, content management system, with WordPress. That's what WordPress basically is. It's across a lot of different platforms: control panel, admin panel, dashboard. It's all the same thing. It's all some way of controlling your content and your site.
So things like Squarespace and Wix, are they also CMS?
So Squarespace and Wix, I've got a bit about those in a bit, but they're not CMSs, but they kind of are. A CMS usually will be sort of self-contained. Most of the CMSs that you have, like WordPress is its own thing by itself. It only exists. I could take a copy of a WordPress site and put it up on a different server, or copy it, put it over here, over there, or whatever domain I wanted. And that whole WordPress site would come with the admin part that you can log into and all the front end parts. Or something like Wix or Squarespace, you can never take it away from Wix or Squarespace. All the admin part is built into the site. So you'll have more limitations because sometimes the limitations are fine. There's enough to work with there, but that's why I say that's why it was sort of a mixed answer, because something like Wix or Squarespace will give you everything that most CMSs will do. They'll let you control most of the stuff. So in that way they are, but typically what a CMS would be for is something that's sort of a bit decoupled from anything else and sits with your website. So if you said, take my entire website and take it away from my current hosting people and put it up on your own server, then that's all possible. But with Wix, there's no situation where you can move away from Wix.
Might be wrong, but I think WordPress.com is similar to Wix, or
yeah,
right?
But even then, because it's WordPress still, you can
export it out.
And break it off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
I think that sort of stuff. WordPress.com is like it's really easy for you to
put
together.
I think it's their own.
Yeah. So that's a bit in the middle. So it's like it's because what WordPress is, it's free and open source. So if you want to download a copy of WordPress, you can download it, and you have to do a bunch of technical stuff, but you can get it working on your own, and you can do what you want with it. Or you can have WordPress.com do all that technical bits and just say, give me a website, please put it here, and they'll sort it all out. So that's it's the way that they monetize WordPress essentially, because otherwise it's built and developed by the community and made available for free. So it's how they still manage to monetize it. So yeah, obviously it's an important part of any site, because without it, even though sometimes it's a pain to edit every different thing, without it you wouldn't be able to edit anything, or you'd have to have developers editing stuff, and a lot of the people who we work with who haven't had CMSs in the past, they work with us and then they're like, oh, I can just change things, I don't have to have a developer change it or anything like that, because that's how sites used to work. They used to just be fixed and you used to have to request someone to make a change. So having a good CMS that lets you edit what you want into is important. And even if you've had a bad experience with one of them in the past or not ideal, usually there's 1,000 ways to implement them. There'll be a better way to do it. Obviously, it lets you have different users, different logins and permissions if you ever want to have other people editing bits and pieces, and you can manage your content and schedule it and all sorts of things like that. There's a lot of different options. WordPress is the most popular one. I'll go into a little bit about WordPress's popularity and sort of the good and the bad of that. Some sites have custom admin areas which can let you control a lot more. Essentially you can give, if you're building it, you can give someone control over absolutely anything you want from an admin area, which is lots of opportunity to completely break the site, but that's what some people want. And then when you are if you are using sort of these sorts of things like WordPress, or there's other ones like WordPress with Drupal and Magento and things like that, sometimes they have different versions. So you need to be careful sometimes, because some of them, with WordPress, you can keep updating it. It stays up to date. Some of them you can't. So like Drupal 6 and 7 and that, you can't update from one to the other. You have to rebuild to get into the new ones. It's completely different. So it's just something to bear in mind. This is our project structure, which I mentioned. This is some typical sort of timings for them. So our exploration phase could be anywhere from a week to, this is for sort of a typical smaller project. So we extrapolate that out into a timeline for each project and say, we're going to spend the next 2 weeks talking to you about your business and the site, what you want to do. Then we're going to be putting a plan together, doing the build, doing the testing, putting the site live, and then any continual maintenance and help you want. Other stuff that is needed So this is probably stuff that you all have at the moment, because if you have the working sites, then you'll have them. Obviously, a domain name, and web hosting, which can be separate. Sometimes they'll be the same. If you get it on WordPress, you probably just buy make the site run and the domain name.
Quick question.
Yeah.
How bad is it to change your domain name? Can you do it without it affecting what you've already created?
You can't do it without affecting what you've already created. It will be a fairly.
Will it be like starting again, basically?
It will be
like
probably as close as you can get to starting again.
Huh?
Yeah, it's probably as close.
Even if your website's the same, but is that even possible to
it-
have your website and just?
It depends from which angle, because I guess you could pull the identical website and re-upload it under another domain, right? So it'd be exactly the same. But any kind of, again, this is more SEO stuff, but any kind of SEO value you've got from that site, it will just start again.
I don't think I have any
Just
anyway.
Google will see, Google will see it's a new site.
I mean, that's a good time to do it if you don't have much.
No idea.
But you can find out bits like that. If you say if you get Google Analytics on there, that gives you an indication even of how many people are visiting every day. Because obviously at the moment, presumably you only see it you only know if people are getting in touch. You don't know how many people are on there who aren't getting in touch.
I have no idea. I need to use Google Analytics.
Yeah.
So Google, there is just a basic free online course you can do, literally by Google, just to understand the basics of it.
On analytics?
Yeah.
I think I tried it and I just...
Not for you.
I think it's more that I have so much to think about already.
Yeah.
In terms of the courses and that educational content. It's like, why am I... this almost takes all of your energy to understand that. So it's really hard to get bothered about it.
Yeah, that's true. But a lot of it, what we do try and take into mind is that you want a lot of it to be set up and just run and be easy to do the bits that you want to do. You guys probably have your domain name set up. You probably have your web hosting set up, whether it's through.
It's with a random Czech company.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of help.
Yeah.
They don't speak English, but they're very cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so usually that's fine, and usually domain name and web hosting be separate. And then, depending on where you're at and sort of size, sometimes you'll want support, which can be, very, very small amounts to just keep your website running, or it can be, you have some people who buy days a month on us to keep adding new stuff and building new things and iterating, and just keep things.
Do you recommend hosts like Bluehost and the other one, GoDaddy?
Yeah.
Or are they a bit hyped up? They always come up at the top of searches.
Yeah,
they're good. I don't know if it's marketing or.
They're good at appearing at the top. With hosting there's a point where it becomes worth sort of upgrading to something better. Obviously those ones will be the cheap ones that will probably be fine when you're starting out. When you get to a certain point, if it starts being slow or difficult, you want to start doing things that you can't really do there, then there's a lot that you can get into with different hosts. But it depends on where you are. There's some hosts that we work with. It's hard to say. We work with the ones we work with because we've worked with them for a long time. We know that they work and we trust them. TSO hosts and things like that. But quite cheap. They're not going to be as it'll be instead of £4 a month, they'll be like 10 or something like that. So there's a slight bump in some of their prices, but they also go up to more expensive things which we use for other sites. So they cover us from the small to the large. We have sort of relationships with them where we know the guys there and the tech guys, and we speak to them and they sort of help us out a lot. So until it's becoming a problem, it's probably not something that you're going to get a huge amount of benefit from. But as soon as you start having more people and wanting to do a bit more, then if it was, for example, if it was with us, we'd say, okay, you should come on to our hosting. We do a bit more. We keep stuff up to date. We update your update the site, update plugins, update everything that's on there, keep it ticking over, handle anything that comes up. It's stuff that is usually neglected for smaller sites because it can be. Then it comes to a point where you have a site that's so big that actually if anything happened, or if there was a bunch of spam things that hit it, then it actually affect you quite a bit. So it's important to have a few measures in place to keep it safe and running. That's where the various levels of support and stuff come in, which are usually coupled with our web hosting.
Great. I might be wrong. I'm just interested. Like, there's two types of web hosting, right? Like, there's one which is more dedicated. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. So it's changed a lot. It used to be sort of if you had dedicated hosting, then people probably use a lot of different terminology to sell things in different ways. But dedicated used to mean that sort of your site was on one server somewhere and running. Now nothing's on one server. All the servers are sort of cloud servers. Everything's mixed in together, and sites are all put on those. They're separated off enough. They're not separated off physically. That makes sense.
Like, I don't even know what a server is.
So
know,
the
server it's just the. So when you have your site built, it's just so like when you to run this, I have to run this on the computer.
Right.
So it's basically just the computer that your site runs on. It's always running in some big data center somewhere.
On someone's computer.
Yeah, basically. But it's
like a physical computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what a server. That's what a server is really. Okay. You're going to be running an operating system like this, but a different one for servers.
Yeah.
And there'll be something mostly data center pictures where they have like rows and rows of big things, of big computers, and all those are just running thousands of sites or programs or all sorts.
Factory of.
Yeah. So servers nowadays, if you have a server, you don't have some computer somewhere. You have a part of that computer somewhere because they're so powerful.
So that can't exist in cloud form.
Yeah, that's basically all these different computers. They just have a bunch of space, and your site slots in, has all the space it needs. It's separated off enough.
The speed of your site is to do with your web hosting.
Yeah, so that it'll be to do with that computer that they have sat there, how good that is,
slow to load,
how much space they give you. Yeah, so that's if you want to improve that. There's some things you can do you can put on the site to improve the site speed, but sometimes it will be to do with the web host. So the last part I've got is a bit about sort of platforms that you can use. So first one we do have is WordPress. So the reason that people usually have used it is because 34% of every single site you visit is on WordPress. Often it doesn't really want to know it, doesn't really look like it, and that's increasing by quite a bit year on year. Of all the sites that have a control panel to edit the content, 60% of those are WordPress now. 28% of everything you buy online on a different store. Obviously Amazon accounts for like 90% of the stuff that is bought online, but of each different store, 28% of the stuff that comes through is on WordPress. 400 million visitors, and every day there are a lot of new sites and stores created. Obviously, you've got some experience with WordPress. There's a lot. I'm going to say it anyway. There's a lot of different ways to build a WordPress site. You can get them built very quickly and very cheaply. People will buy or reuse bits and pieces that make up a WordPress site. So WordPress sites have themes and plugins and all these bits and pieces that you can buy off the shelf, put on there, and it will look a certain way and work in a certain way. We don't use so much of those because like I said, all of our processes for having the right ways to convert the right sort of customers, it doesn't really work if we buy off the shelf stuff. So we build all of our stuff up bespoke, and means that what you have is built specifically for you. It's not no one else has it, and it'll be better than anything you can just buy because it'll be very specific to what you need. So WordPress is a good way to do that, and it's how the better WordPress sites, how they do that. The worst ones that you'll see will just have a lot of off-the-shelf stuff, and you can throw a WordPress site together in a day just by installing things, or you can spend a few weeks on it, building it up, making it how you want.
Would you say you know how to code to be able to do that?
Well, again, we build, the way we build WordPress sites is a big part of what we want to take into account is not just the front end that your users have, but it's the back end part that everybody who's running the business is going to be using. So we put quite a lot of time and thought into that as well. So we don't want to build something so that you have to know how to code to do it. To set it up originally, if you want to build it with a custom, then you have to know how to code. Otherwise, you can work with WordPress without doing any coding by installing these other bits and pieces, but you're never going to get exactly what you want, especially if you're going to be working with like a third party bit of software that's going to be pulling stuff in, then there's likely going to be some coding there. I mean, the third party might have a WordPress plugin which does a lot of it for you, but usually there'll be something that you need to do. And yeah, it's the coding that we do to create custom pages and all the sort of stuff that makes, after a certain point, it'll make a big difference.
Are you talking about the backend being WP admin?
Yeah.
And you would set that up in some way to make it easier for us to use, or we would just log in with that and it would be how I'm seeing it now with the page posts.
A lot of it will stay the same with the page and the post and things like that, but if we build the designs that we will do are very custom, so we want to make it so that you can edit everything in those designs without it being a pain. So if you have a page and there's loads of text and video and images and fields, we want to make sure that every single one of those things can be edited without you having to go to code and do things like that. So it's like a field for.
What I don't like about WordPress is you can't really see the page.
Yeah.
You're just working, and then you have to view, and this flipping back and forth is just takes up your whole life. It's just
So there are some bits that WordPress has some of the most recent changes are to try and. That's a problem that a lot of people had.
Yeah.
Some of the most recent bits on there that you probably, unless your site's very new, it's probably not really utilising. But some of the most recent bits have been to change the back end part, the admin area, to look, when you're editing it, to look more like the front end.
You need to see a live version of what you're editing.
So that's a lot more what it's like now.
Okay.
And
it's
then
not what I'm using.
No, it's one of the most recent changes, and it's also probably like the biggest change ever made.
That's WordPress.org?
It's on everything, but it's not, because it's such a big change, it's not something you just will start seeing. If you have a site that was built before this change came out, you're probably not going to be, it's not going to be used because it's that big a change.
Okay, yeah.
So sites built after this will work in a slightly different way. Sites built before it, you won't have it.
Just want to drag and drop and click or edit.
What about adding Visual Composer on WordPress?
Yeah, so Visual Composer is a plugin that does. So
that's what we have on ours.
Yeah, so there'll be good things about Visual Composer because you'll be able to do a lot of drag and dropping and sort of moving things around like that, but you still will be working within what Visual Composer can do. So usually the sites that we build, we don't use Visual Composer, but we try. It ends up being a little bit similar in the options and the things that you can do. Also with Visual Composer, it slows down the site a lot. Well, you might not notice it, but without Visual Composer, it would be faster. There are ways to account for it, but it can be very heavy. But we use Visual Composer when we've needed to in the past. Obviously, each site is unique, and they're all going to have their own things. Do you find it? Is it good to use? Is there backwards?
Some pages are okay, and then others it's just like. So, for example, we have pictures of speakers, and they'll be all over the place, and we don't know how to make them look all straight and not aligned.
Yeah, so that's
massive gaps and everything.
Yeah, that's a typical sort of the the more control you give over stuff, the more it can sort of spiral and be difficult to lock down. So we do try and what we try and build is something that sits in the middle of that gives you the right amount of control that you want without just like, and also there's things like consistency across different pages and things like that. And if you have the ability to do absolutely everything, then quite often one page to the next will look very different than that. So there's ways that we try and not limit what people can do, but keep it within the right sort of theming, the right style, and things like that. And it means that you don't end up with bits all over the place, and that because you can edit the content, but it will sit within a structure, or you can sit within a few different structures. So there's definitely a medium between something like Visual Composer, which gives you the ability to do everything, and then when it goes wrong, you're kind of stuck. And a sort of site that gives you the right amount of control, but doesn't let things go too crazy. Obviously, sometimes bespoke sites. Obviously, WordPress. A lot of what we do with WordPress is bespoke, but you can build a bespoke site without using WordPress or without using really anything that has a name and just building up in code from scratch. Sometimes they'll use something called a framework, which is basically sort of what it sounds like. It's a sort of a core thing you never really see, but helps a programmer build up a site from scratch. Most sites, unless they're very, very specific, don't use that because it takes longer and it's more expensive. But it does give you something that's that you can do more with. Essentially, if you're building a site in WordPress, you can do a real lot with it, but you're still going to be within WordPress the whole time. If you have a site that's bespoke from scratch, then you can literally do anything with it. So that's the advantage of bespoke sites sometimes, but it's sort of as and when they're needed. And there's some other things which this is just other people might talk to you about. Other things you can use, there's a lot of popular these sorts of things, Node and Vue, and these are just other ways which people build things other than WordPress. A lot of them are very popular because they're easier for developers to use, but they're not necessarily easier to use. That's why, for all its issues, that's why WordPress is a good choice because it's easy to use when it's built right. Obviously there are the site builders like Wix and Squarespace, which will have advantages, and quite often they do have. And there's what's the other one as well? Shopify, which is sort of your e-commerce equivalent of Wix or Squarespace. It's the same sort of thing. And quite often those can be good sort of catalysts with early sites.
Is Shopify mainly for products though, as opposed to things like retreats and services?
It is mainly for products, but they're.
Would it work in a retreat format?
And they are trying to cover e-commerce in general, which now is not so much just about products. It's more about service-based things.
And can you adapt it so it's a bit content-y and a blog?
Yeah. So there's still you I don't know exactly which one will be best for you. It's probably any of them will probably. I guess it depends where you want to go. If you want to go down the more e-commerce route, or whether it's going to be more content focused with your educational stuff, it's probably the advantages and disadvantages for both. But both of them, like how Wix and Squarespace will have things that account for e-commerce, Shopify does have a lot of stuff which is focused around content. So they're both let you do both. But either way, whatever you're going to use, it is a commitment. If you have a WordPress site and you have a WordPress site built, then there is value in that. That's your own IP, it's your own stuff. You can do lots with it. You can build it up. If you're using one of the site builders, then you will be on those. You will be sort of committed to those for a while, because if you want to move away from that, you start from scratch again. But they can be useful to get to a point where you're sort of ready to move away from them. sometimes.
But then if you move away, start again.
Basically, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you have a WordPress site at the moment, if you left that for a few years and went onto one of the site builders and came back to it, you'd basically be old and useless, and you'd be starting from scratch. But sometimes it can be what you need to get to the point where you've got budget and things for a site that's really gonna do everything you need it to. So yeah, most of what we do is with WordPress, but we've touched on a lot of different platforms. There's 20 or 30 or so that we've got experience with. WordPress is good because unlike the others, you can just keep it updating. And if there's a security thing that comes out, or some big news thing about all these sites getting broken, the good thing about WordPress being what's called open source is that means that there's just a community of hundreds of thousands of people who contribute to it, who fix everything by sort of a social agreement, and things get vetted and pushed into the core and updated. And it's a really good way of having a very popular and high quality thing for free. That's the best part about WordPress, really. It's not, it used to be the case that if you really use something like this, there'd be a licensing fee, and there'd be thousands and thousands, and so it's quite good. Yeah, so those are the options, and if there's any other bits that you want to run through, so we've tried to give sort of an idea of what's important to think about early on, some of the options, some of the different sorts of types of site that and then try and help provide a bit of a funnel almost for how to think of sites and what to be thinking about. There's a lot of options there. Obviously, there's a lot of choices, a lot of things that can factor in, and a lot of risk, really.
What do you recommend with video content? Like using YouTube and linking it, or directly uploading onto the? Is that even possible?
It is, but using YouTube is usually the best option because there's a few reasons. Because there's like a technical reason. If you're uploading it directly to the site, then you have to store that video in space, and you have to make sure that it plays fast, and you have to make sure that it's working and all the other stuff. And if you upload to YouTube, YouTube will just take care of all that stuff for you. And embedding it's quite easy. And it's also a thing that people know. So if you every time you have some other video player, you're like, oh, is there a volume? Where's the this? Where's the that? And and YouTube, YouTube has the watch later thing whenever you embed it and things like that, which I use a lot. Every time I see a video on some site that I don't want to look at right now, you can watch later, and when you go to YouTube later on, it's there.
I'm wondering, is it even worth having videos on the website when YouTube's so good? Are you better off just developing a channel on YouTube?
Yeah, but if you have the channel on YouTube, then it's so easy to link them. It should be so easy to link them on the website that it's a good way to get people, because it can be quite difficult. YouTube at the moment, the things it's going through with, it's always changing the way you have to tag videos, and it used to be about tags, now it's about the description in the video, and it's very competitive, and it's got its own sort of ways to get to the top, and then you have to sort of think about where people are coming from. I think there's a lot of the time people aren't going to YouTube and searching for the sorts of things that they often find through websites. There's a lot of videos that are popular, but people don't go to YouTube to search for. They'll either search for Google or they'll find it on another site.
But then Google brings up all the YouTube videos.
Yeah, it brings up some of them, yeah. But it's still good to have them on the site.
Yeah, like we have a YouTube channel, about 5 videos, but we put the link in the back end, and then that shows up on the website, and you can just play it from the website.
Yeah. Usually it's a good thing, and it's just another way for people to get to the YouTube content. It helps, and it helps grow the. If you view it on the website, it grows it on YouTube.
Yeah.
It shows an account of play count on YouTube. It all contributes. People can click on it and go to YouTube straight away. So usually it's a good, especially even if you're focusing on growing the YouTube channel, having the links on the site is a good way to grow it. Yeah. Is educational stuff, do you think, going to be a big part of?
Yeah, the only thing holding me back is all this techie stuff.
Yeah.
Having to do it all myself.
What's the sort of, I guess, what's the biggest change then from, if you could have something change on the site now that would make things easier, what's the biggest thing you think that's,
How do you mean
is if you could have one thing solved now that's holding you back technically?
Someone just to take that part away from me. You know, it's like I just want to focus on the content and not everything else. And when I have to focus on everything else, I don't have any energy for content.
Yeah.
So it's like I've just been stuck, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's definitely, yeah. Ask that anyone. There's lots of ways to get that taken off your plate. It can definitely be a pain, but it also should be, you know, it can just be that you need a couple of days of someone sorting bits out, and then it's good to go. You know, because it shouldn't, especially, you know, without having a huge site, you shouldn't. Once you're set up, you shouldn't need to have to be worrying about it that much. So yeah, there's if it's that much of a concern, then yeah, there's definitely something missing, and it should just do what you want to do and not cause you. You know, that's the mark of a good site, really, that it just works. You can use it. You can do what you want with it.
Yeah, maybe I need a solid template that would just be easy to use.
Yeah, you know, a few extra templates isn't the most difficult thing for someone to sort out. I mean, I guess, do you actually have, like, do you select a template when you create a page, or is it just a blog or a home page?
I think I'm using like the WordPress templates. Is that what you mean? Or?
Yeah. It depends how many are there. Did you buy a theme initially? You know,
theme, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm using a theme. I forget what it's called. Optimizer.
There's
so many.
But I feel like I want to change it.
Millions of themes.
Yeah. But when I try and change the theme, it's like, oh my god, I have to start again, or.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't seem to translate. I'm like, where's my website? When I change the theme, I just expect it to like just change, you know. But it's like it just disappears. I'm like, okay, I have to do a lot more, and then I'm like, no, I can't change it back.
Yeah. Well, WordPress is sort of a victim of its own success in some way, because it started out as a blogging thing. So it was supposed to be, you have your blog, you change your theme like you used to change like themes on like MySpace and stuff back in the day.
And you expect it just to translate.
Yeah, change it so that, you know, now the background is purple and the text is red.
It's not like that.
That's what it used to be like, but because of how it's grown, how popular it's got, and how much more it can do, it's a bit more difficult to just have a theme that swaps everything over.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, we build these themes up. We still use a theme, but we build it up from scratch. You know, if we took one of the themes we use from one of our sites and put it on another one, it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't work. Nothing would work. So the more you do with it as well, the more you come to rely on your theme. So it is difficult to swap over, but it's not impossible. And again, the sooner you do it, the easier it is. As difficult as it may be at the moment, if you have twice as many pages and twice as much content, it's twice as difficult.
That's a really basic website.
Yeah, so it should be possible to find, but there's so many themes that a lot of them will be terrible and won't look good when you won't be made very well, so that they swap over easily.
Yeah.
But there will be others that.
What is it you need to adjust though? You need to go like set up the menu again and link the posts and pages, or do the front page all over again, I think.
Yeah, it depends on the theme so much.
Because like some themes, they'll install loads of extra plugins, things like that, and those will get removed if you change the theme, so it won't know where to put anything. So just
If you change themes and you try and rebuild the site and then you don't like it, can you just flip back and your old theme will still be there, or have you messed it up by changing things around?
It depends on, yeah. So if you have one theme which you edit content in one of the boxes for, and then you change that same box on the new theme, then that will change it. But if the new theme adds different boxes to put stuff in, and you swap back, you'll keep it. So it's which is a confusing explanation, but it's just not as nice as you'd like swapping between themes to be, just because it's outgrown that to a degree, which doesn't make life easy. But yeah, if you're doing the same box on a different theme, then you can't swap back. If you're editing a different box, and by box I mean like somewhere with text in it that you write content or anything. If you're editing a different one on a new theme that's got different input boxes, then you should be able to switch back. Everything is saved in WordPress all the time. So yeah. Is there anything else that you think would be useful? Anything else that you're worried about or thinking about, or is going to come up as a part of your process? And how far through what you're doing now?
I mean,
is it based on this other? Is it based?
Yeah, pretty much. It's based on this other system. We haven't. I don't know because I'm not the one that's deciding on which one we're getting. I don't know what stage they're at. But hopefully soon. I'm just wondering how it's going to sit. I think we're still going to use WordPress.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how it's gonna work. How it's gonna all tie together.
Yeah. So there'll be sort of third party system like that. It's going to be an important thing to, if you wanted to integrate with the website, you have to just say to them how, what do you offer with that, because there's no way to go and get that from them if they don't offer it up. So if they make it available, then usually there's ways to pull in events and do matching and all the stuff on the site as well. But for most people like that, there is incentive for them to offer that because it's just something they can offer. It depends on that. It depends on what they have there. But WordPress would be the sort of thing WordPress can pull in. And I mean, for your events, I'm not sure why you have a different login for each event page.
Yeah, no, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's the way someone set it up or what.
Yeah,
but
there are so many ways that you can, because you do so much of WordPress, there's so many ways you can set everything up and that. And sometimes it's just a product of it sort of evolving over time, and it's not necessarily things being done wrong. It's just you find a fix for a situation at a time. But if you have a point where you can take a step back and look at it again, you can make things a lot simpler. Events should just be a list of events and go into.
And then and then if they click on a certain event, that will go to the third party website, which will be themed the same. So
all the stuff like that is all relatively simple to do.
I just need to write a rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you know what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you have any other bits that you want to know about or anything else, or if you just want to.
I guess it's more specific, and it's just working out how to create a good customer journey and.
So that's
all that kind of stuff,
really. That's the. I mean, how big is what you're doing at the moment? How many people is there? How many customers do you deal with?
Well, it's quite a small company, so not that big really. Just needs changing.
So there's that's a big part of our learning process is, but people also sometimes people don't value it enough. Having a website that you've looked at earlier on as to who's visiting, what they want to be doing, what we want them to be doing, can be a massive, have a massive impact on what you have at the moment and everything that's happening. And it's very important.
the stream.
Okay.
Yeah, like we can